Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show, and I'm just going to completely ignore Eric and pretend he's not. No, just kidding. Eric's here too.
I'm here.
Eric is here, and we're going to be talking about goblins again, right?
No,
Okay.
not today.
We already talked about goblins. Actually, depends on. I always do this. I always reference our most recent recording.
Now you're gonna have to put the goblin.
Not to put that one first, which is fine and great, but I have to remember that, future Mitch, remember that because you're going to be editing these and then not remembering it. And you're going to put the wrong order. And people will be like, "What are you talking about? When has Eric talked about goblins?" Anyways, what are we talking about in this episode?
We're gonna talk about why infinite combos and win you the game on the spot cards are boring and dumb.
Okay, all right. So I would put a little asterisk next to that. Asterisk? I always say that word wrong. Because there are certain things that I'll play devil's advocate a little bit on this.
Oh,
just a little bit.
We both will.
We both will on this. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some perspective of that, and definitely something that can be frustrating, especially in a format like Commander where players have different expectations, and sometimes those expectations can be broken. And one of those things that can break it is infinite combos and just people's perspective on those.
Yeah. So let's start by defining an infinite combo.
Okay. Well, technically, rules lawyers out there will say that nothing can be infinite. You need to pick a number. So if you're going to deal damage to me, it has to be a certain number.
A gazillion, jillion.
A gazillion's not a number. Trillion. Okay.
So a prime example is Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker
Okay.
and Zealous Conscripts.
All right.
Do you want to talk about how the loop works?
I will. So Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker is a 2/2 Goblin Shaman. See, I told you we talked about goblins. We're talking about goblins.
We do, yeah.
With haste that costs 3 mana. Lots of red in there. Tap, put a token that's a copy of target non-legendary creature control on the battlefield. That token has haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. The other part of this combo is Zealous Conscripts. Actually, there's a couple of other cards that could really combo with this, but let's just say Zealous Conscripts to make it easy. A 3/3 hasty human warrior that costs 4 in a red. When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent until end of turn. Untap that permanent, gains haste until end of turn. The combo works like this. You have both these in play. That's it. You have both these in play. You tap Kiki Jiki to make a copy of Zealous Conscripts, which is obviously a non-legendary creature. You get a token of it. You have the sacrifice at the end step, beginning of the end step, but that does not matter because you're not going to get to the end step. You never do that. Zealous Conscripts is going to be a token now. You get a token copy. It enters the battlefield. You gain control of a permanent until turn. Instead of stealing an opponent's permanent, you say, no, I want to gain control of my own Kiki Jiki, which means that you just untap it, and you are going to give it haste till end of turn. So it untaps, then you tap it again, and again, and again, making infinite Zealous Conscripts, which you can then swing with. And yes, technically, it's not just a win automatically. Someone could fog and stop it, but it basically is going to win the game nearly every single time you do it because you have infinite Zealous Conscripts to swing with. Also, if you had impact terms in play, you'd already just win.
Yep, Perforos. Yeah.
Perforos. Any of those damage doers whenever a creature comes into play.
Yep.
So there you go. That is the combo.
That's the combo. So that's an infinite combo. There's a ton out there in the game. There's ones that make you infinite mana.
Yep.
They're not even necessarily you win the game. There's just a lot of, there's the draw your entire deck combos. There's all sorts of stuff. So defining that, then let's define what we'll call them an I win card is. So for one example that I immediately thought of was Systemic Ascendancy.
Sure.
It has a condition. It doesn't just win you the spot right then and there, but it is a 2 mana enchantment, blue and green, and then you can pay 1 colorless, green and blue, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Simic Ascendancy has 20 or more growth counters on it, you win the game. I have this card in a deck playing Devil's Advocate. I know I'm saying that these are boring, but and dumb. I do have this in a deck. It is in my Voral Counters deck. I've never actually won with it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's kind of more or less in there as a redundancy to get the game over with.
Sure.
Which we'll talk about reasons why these are actually acceptable in a little bit. But this is a provided you satisfy all of the conditions of this card, you win the game.
Yeah, it's an alternative win condition, and it gets around any other ways to win, with commander damage, or you don't have to take out your opponents, essentially.
If you're at 1 life
and
your opponents are at 100 life, you win the game.
Yep, 100%. I'd say this one is definitely one that has gotten easier and easier over the years now, especially with more counter support and especially with Proliferate becoming more of a thing, too.
Yes.
Okay. Next up, another example I think you pointed out is Trisky Decaphile, if I could say that name right. A 1/3 human wizard for 1 and a blue. You have no maximum hand size, so that's already just a nice card to put in certain decks. You can pay 3 and a blue to draw a card. Also, on top of that, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have exactly 13 cards in your hand, you win the game. So this is one I will point out, though. And kind of with these, there is like a kind of hitch in it in that you do have to get to your upkeep. So you have to protect it. You are in blue, though. You've got ways to counter. But yes, that is kind of like that. You don't win automatically right away. You have to actually get to that on the upkeep. If opponents can't deal with it and they can't deal with it, then you would win. If you
like Simic Ascendancy.
Like Simic Ascendancy,
well.
absolutely. A lot of those kind of have that like little like stopgap
and
measure.
You got to make sure you get to that point and have exactly 13 cards in hand.
Yep, exactly. Which you're in blue, you've got plenty of like instant speed draw, instant speed X draw spells you could just win in that way.
And looting if you need to get down to
absolutely.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, the last one we pointed out is Approach the Second Sun. You want to read that one for us?
Yep. So this is a pretty one. Actually, everybody will probably know this one, even if they didn't know the other two.
Yep.
6 and white sorcery. If Approach of the Second Sun was cast from your hand, and you've cast another spell named Approach of the Second Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach of the Second Sun into its owner's library 7th from the top, and you gain 7 life.
Yep.
So basically, you cast this once, you gain 7 life, and then you tuck it in the 7 slot of your library, and then the next time you cast it, you win the game.
Yep.
So this is a pretty common one that, like I said, everybody kind of knows.
It was basically the only way for Boros decks to win for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
It ends the game.
It ends the game. So yeah, this one is not like upkeep trigger based. It is just cast this twice, you win based.
Right.
So we get an I win card.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what's the big deal?
Yeah.
Right. I'll give my 2 cents on some of this stuff.
Sure.
So from my perspective, and like I said, playing devil's advocate here, I'm a little bit of a hypocrite right now because I definitely do. I have some decks that have infinite combos.
Sure.
Only a couple. And I also do have some of these win on the spot cards. My decks aren't, if they have those in them, that isn't necessarily the only, that isn't the thing I'm driving to.
Sure.
I'm not trying to play that deck to get Simic Ascendancy out and win with Simic Ascendancy.
Sure.
If it happens to come out, I'll put it out there and I almost use it as like removal bait, you know?
Definitely can be.
And I might even hold on to it if it's early game because I don't really want the game to be done super fast.
Yep.
Which kind of my first point with this is games that have these cards in them can feel anticlimactic.
Sure.
I like to think of Commander games as kind of a collective story almost, you know, like we're all participating in this fun arc and the best games is like there's a push and pull, right?
Yep.
Mitch is going off and we got to get him down a little bit.
Yeah.
Alec was mana screwed and now he's coming back out of nowhere. And then, so it's like everybody, the best games you're like end the game and you're like, man, everybody felt like the threat in that game at some point.
100%.
You know, there's a good back and forth.
It reminds me of that like Stranger Things game that we played all together, and like I was like the threat for a while, and then you all kind of like miscellaneously kind of came together. Just I think you stole like 2 things from 2 other people essentially just to take me out, and it comboed like not combo, but like it. Like they worked well. There was like Hellkite Charger plus another card or whatever, and it just got me essentially out of there.
Yeah.
So like it was all kind of like everyone together took me out. So it's like you remember those moments.
Yeah, it's like and like I said, it kind of feels like you're part of this story, this narrative that you're all kind of participating in, even if you're not necessarily playing like a game of D&D where it is a literal narrative.
100%.
It still kind of can feel that way.
Yep.
So running these things can feel really like anticlimactic. You know, I made a note of like the best games are the ones you don't want to end.
Sure.
You know, like even like Commander games go a really long time.
Yep.
But the best ones are just like you don't even like, oh man, it's getting a little late, but this is so fun, you know, like
it's always the last game of the night that ends up being the longest one, right?
Oh,
You're like,
yeah.
okay, I got to go in an hour, but we should be done by then, right?
Yeah,
oh, yeah,
exactly.
yeah. 3 hours, and you're like, oh, gosh.
Yep.
I guess I don't need sleep.
So I think like one of the big things that I guess the ultimate point that I'm making with it is infinite combos can end a game if you need to get going, you know, like these things can definitely end the game. And I think that's the case that I would say is a good for them, you know, a mark in the plus column.
Yep.
The problem is that anytime I've played games where either I'm using infinite combos or somebody else is, they happen too early.
Sure.
And it feels like you're just getting your deck set up to do its thing, and then we're done.
Yep.
You know, so it's just kind of like, well, then I wasted time even putting these cards out. You know what I mean? Like I just kind of feel like it was.
I will mention real quick. We forgot to mention this is for casual Commander.
CEDH.
The goal is to win as quick as possible.
100%. Yes.
That's not the only goal.
This
CEDH,
is entirely through the lens of casual Commander.
100%.
Yes. Which is why I think the rule zeroing, do you have infinite combos at the beginning of a game, especially if you're with strangers, but even when we're with friends and stuff, like, hey, what are you running in this? Like, it isn't even necessarily what's your win con. It's, are you trying to win with an infinite combo? Or are you even just running like infinite mana combos or something like that, where it's like, okay, they can basically play their entire deck now because they have infinite mana or whatever, you know? So it's just good to like have those conversations up front.
Yes. I think setting expectations is the most important thing here. And that's, I think, what the conversations pre-game are supposed to be for. Like, you know, again, like being able to say, yeah, are you okay with this or that or this or that? Like, are you okay with stacks? Are you okay with, again, like, just like there are certain things that, again, some players are okay with and some players aren't. And I think once you get playing Commander for a little bit, you have an understanding on what those things are. Infinite combos are within that realm of, again, I'm not saying infinite combos are stacks or land destruction or mass land destruction, but like, it's still something that some players don't like to play with or against, and you should be making others aware that, like, hey, like, are you okay with this? If not, I'll pull out another deck. Or actually, I have certain decks that, like, I'll talk about one here in a little bit, that does have an infinite combo in it, essentially, but I am completely fine with taking that card out, or taking those, I think I have 2 cards out, and then swapping down 2 other cards, or picking a different deck.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like, also, when we're looking at the lens of infinite combos, and maybe this is kind of playing back into the point that I made around it happening too early, is there are ways to go infinite with more than 2 cards.
Yep.
And those infinite combos don't feel quite as abrupt or
well, it's just also more difficult to actually kind of pull it off once you do have.
You got to protect more pieces.
You've got more of a setup that you have to actually get out. You got to protect more pieces, and some of them can just be like haphazard and janky. So
yeah, and janky infinite can be fun and silly, because it usually happens beyond turn 4 or 5.
100%.
So by then, you know, you've kind of had a bit of a game already.
Yep.
It isn't necessarily like, God, this game needs to end now, but if it happened at that point, it wouldn't feel like, oh, this
nearly
was
as
pointless.
like rug pulled out from underneath.
Yeah. Like I don't even feel like I played my deck.
100%.
You know? I think you mentioned, or you wrote down, you want to give an example?
Sure, yeah. So I actually built an entire deck around Lich's Mastery because I think it's a janky, hilariously terrible card. And so I built an entire deck around this. It's a legendary enchantment that costs 3 black. Hexproof, you can't lose the game. Whenever you gain life, draw that many cards. And a slight downside that whenever you lose life, for each 1 life you lost, exile a permanent you control a card from your hand or graveyard. And also another slight downside that when it leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. So essentially, the deck wants to get this in play and hopefully not lose the game and hopefully gain a good amount of life to draw a good amount of cards. So with that, I then kind of utilize cards like Lunarch Veteran, because the Soul Sisters are out above a budget, essentially. So there's this card. When another creature enters battlefield you control, you gain 1 life. There's also Disturbed Side, but I don't care about that one really that much. And Passion Order, exact same thing, essentially, but at 2 mana. So these kind of creatures that are like Soul Sister-esque, essentially, but just for your creatures come into play, you gain life. That's just basically what it is. So then when you gain life, you draw the cards with Lich's Mastery. So then, one of my favorite cards of all time is Zombie Infestation. Discard 2 cards, make a 2/2 black zombie. So what this loop would be essentially is I discard 2 cards, I make a 2/2 zombie, I gain 2 life. You need 2 of the life gainers out and actually do this. You gain 2 life. You draw 2 more cards. You discard 2 more cards. You make 2 life. This entire loop is literally just turning your entire library into half that many zombies, and that is all it does. And you can run out of cards because you still can't lose the game because Lich's Mastery says you can't lose the game. Yep. That's all you're trying to do is just get an army of zombies out and hope you win with that. That is it. So essentially, it's a very janky, dumb combo that takes a lot of setup with an obnoxious card that is terrible, Lich's Mastery. And that's just basically what I'm trying to do. Now, do I make others aware of it ahead of time? Yes, I do. I still make people aware that, hey, are you okay with an infinite combo? I don't exactly describe what that infinite combo is, but I'm like, hey, are you okay with a janky infinite combo that takes a lot of setup and is not going to win super early? They say yes, great, I'll play it. If not, I'll play something else. So, like, it is just kind of that respect thing for other people and their time and being like, are you okay with playing with this. If not, I'm going to respect your time and make a different decision. If you're still deciding to make that decision, you're not respecting other people's time.
Yeah, and if you look at like how much mana between all those
Oh,
cards
yeah.
that you have to have,
Yeah.
like that definitely is not happening before turn 5.
Well, and again, like none of those cards are powerful on their own. Like I would say Kiki Jiki without a combo is still a very powerful card. I would say Zealous Conscript is still a card that can be utilized. These are all just haphazard cards that don't work well on their own at all.
I think the big thing when like you see a Kiki Jiki come down, you're like, if you don't have any like
you're waiting
counters
for
or
the other
removal,
hard
you're like,
part.
we're gonna be done.
Yeah.
Or a Sanguine Bond.
Yep.
Or, you know, something like that.
You're
just
waiting
like,
for the other half, essentially, is what
Right.
you're doing. And if you don't have removal, if no one has removal at that point, it's over.
Yeah.
Yep.
There was a tournament that I played in, very casual tournament, that we kind of all brought decks or whatever, and like the infinite combos were allowed,
Yep.
and whatnot, but there was like a budget, you know, for each of the deck
Sure.
builds and stuff like that. Anyways, so tournament played all day long, and I got knocked out. Like I wasn't in the finals or whatever, but I was like really excited to go and watch the finals game. Yeah, there's the champion, you know, the last 4 decks or whatever. And it's like, oh, cool. So I, you know, was at a brewery, so I went and got a beer, and I went and sat down, and I was like, got a good spot right at the edge of the table. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be great. I'm ready to watch like a fun Commander game of the top 4 decks, right? And it felt, I think it was like turn 3 or 4, somebody assembled an infinite combo, and the game was done. And it was like
kind of anticlimactic.
It was so, I was just like reminded of why I don't typically run and our meta doesn't run a ton of infinite combos and stuff, because it was just like, oh, like I just got like a fresh beer, and now I gotta sit here and I was
Just
ready to
chug
like
your beer and leave.
heckle and watch a game, you know? Like it was just kind of like, it was like watching
It's like watching a boxing match and then the person's knocked out in
the first round.
Yeah.
Or like, I mean,
you watch a soccer game and they're like, all right, 1 goal has been scored.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Which in a soccer match, you know, might take an hour.
It might take an hour. And sometimes you might not even get to that.
Sometimes you might get it. Sometimes it's 0-0, and that's completely fine.
But I think that angle of like, again, going back to like the collective story and that sort of stuff, it's like it'd be like reading like the first chapter of a book and then just jumping to the end of the book and reading the like giveaway, you know, or whatever, and it's like,
or there's this book, right? You have like 5 pages in, and then it just ends, and the rest is blank.
That too, right? Or yeah, like
where's the rest of the story?
It's the you know, it's the warp whistle, you know, or whatever. You can jump to the end, you know, and it's like, yeah, but if you jump to the end, the game isn't nearly as fun because you didn't have any fun getting to the end.
Sure.
You know, so I don't know, like. Again, making a case for the combos in those cards, I think, you know, if the game is, because there's the flip side, right, where it's like we're all just dirtling and staring at each other, and you're just kind of like, look, my deck is not doing anything. I'm completely out. Maybe my key creature or something like that my deck is really revolved around is just gone. I'm never gonna be. I've cast my commander 3 times. It costs way too much.
Yep.
You know, and you're just kind of like going through the motions.
100%.
Yeah, those games need to end, right?
Yep.
And if nobody is
the other
able
end to it as well. Yep.
Very few games have I been in where that has happened, though, because usually there's, even if I'm the guy that's like, oh, I'm just going through the motions because I've got nothing else to do in this game, somebody else is running away with it.
Yeah.
Or 2 people are kind of like fencing at that point.
Yep.
So very few instances, but that is also why I will occasionally, not in every deck, but occasionally I'll throw in Triskaidekaphile if I need like a card that draws me cards.
Sure.
And by the way, if I happen to have exactly 13 on my upkeep,
need to finish,
like I'm not trying to do that.
Sure.
But like that card was in my 11 deck on that episode of Close Quarters.
Yep.
So it's like I had that in there as like almost a redundancy. It really was just like it was a budget card that drew me cards.
To give you max mana.
For 4 mana, I was able to draw I think 2 cards or whatever, or whatever it draws off of it. It's 4 mana, draw a card, so it isn't even really efficient.
Yes.
But it was just like, hey, you know, it's a card, and it's a maybe I might, you know, but it was no maximum hand size too.
Sure. Yes, but if you need like a backup win condition with it, you can use that too.
If I happen to have,
without building around like, okay, I'm gonna go tutor for that, get this in play, protect it with 3 counter spells, and then just win.
Yeah, and like in Simic Ascendancy, I was at Command Fest Minneapolis. I was playing a game. Alec was playing in it too, and it was a couple other guys that we had just met at that day or whatever. And I had Simic Ascendancy out. I was for sure gonna win on the upkeep. The other two guys didn't have it, and I was like, I know Alec has it. I know Alec has it. He always has it.
Yeah.
And then it was just kind of like it was getting around. And I was like, am I actually gonna win with this card for the first time ever?
Yeah.
And of course, Alec had it, and he
Of
took it out. And I was actually happy to see that happen.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of early game too,
Sure.
and I was just like, but you're at command.
Yeah.
You're trying to play as many games of Commander at Magic Fest. So I was just like, it would be okay if the game ended fast, but I was like, oh, nice, Alec. Yeah, good. You got rid of it.
100%.
So it's like, I don't know. There's that angle of it, but
it's a weird push and pull to this.
Yeah.
100%. There definitely is.
But ultimately, to me, like, again, the CEDH notwithstanding, like, I mean, like, that's a whole nother conversation.
100%.
In casual play, I just don't see a lot of instances to make a case for
to win
infinite
turn
combo.
3, 4, 5,
Right.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
To have the 2-card infinite combo.
Yep.
Like if you have a combo that requires a bit of setup and a lot of things to protect, it's not happening before turn 4 or 5, and at that point, like I said, like everybody's deck is kind of starting to do the thing.
Yep.
And even if I have one of those combos in hand or whatever, I might hold on to it until I feel like I'm not going to win unless I do that.
Sure.
Because I don't build decks around an infinite combo.
Just to win with it.
I might have it in there for redundancy or something. Or maybe because it's got flavor.
Well, and there's also just certain cards that just happen to combo together that already have great synergy together without the combo that would just be in the deck regardless. Like
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've accidentally comboed into like stuff like that where it's like, oh, wait, that
I didn't realize
infinite.
that did that. And actually, quick thing. If you want to kind of know what all the combos in your deck are, just like even it does help kind of just so you can actually make others aware if there are there, even you might not be aware. Commander's Spellbook, I believe, is the resource that actually you can just paste your list in and it will show you what combos you have. Even if it's like a 3, 4, 5 card combo, you can then be aware of that essentially.
Every deck that I build, I'll take the list and I'll dump it in there just to see how, and maybe even see like, well, how far away am I from a combo if there's a combo that I might want to have, or some reason for it, right?
100%.
So it might be because a lot of times it might say like, hey, if you add this color to your deck, you'd be able to do this. Or if you just added this, a lot of times it's like just add Kiki Jiki and
it comes with it. It comes with the ham sandwich.
Yeah, a lot of times there are those kinds of cards or whatever, but. In general, that is good to see that because then you also can know your deck a little bit better.
100%.
You may not even be aware.
And make others aware, like if there is a 2-card combo, like, hey, I didn't realize this when I built the deck, but it has this in there. Is that okay? Or that kind of stuff. Or again, like maybe even if you're a person who really doesn't want to have combos in your deck to like, have that as an option, then just, okay, like, oh, I know what's in there. I can take one of these out then potentially too.
Right.
And actually kind of with that on the opposite end of things, I just want to give a quick story too, because on the opposite end of this, with my Garth One-Eye deck, which is basically just like, get indestructible lands in play, put a bunch of auras on them so they can tap for a lot of mana, and then untap them a lot, tap them off for a lot of mana. I was asked at one point to actually include an infinite combo in it so it would go faster to finish, essentially, because it can be, once it gets kind of the end of it, like an arduous turn at some point to tap for a lot of mana, untap it, tap it again, tap for a lot of mana, and that kind of stuff. So I have been asked, actually, I was asked by a player to actually put an infinite combo in there, like Filigree Sages, which can untap an artifact for 3, essentially 2 and a blue, or Wakeroot Elemental, which can untap a land for 5. So either way, I'm untapping my artifact land that has all those auras on it and gaining basically infinite mana. And then you go in with Garth with like Brain Geyser. Regardless, I do ask ahead of time, though, if it's people I haven't played with before, essentially like, hey, are you okay with infinite combos? Are you not? Because I will just take those 2 cards out, or I will put them in. Again, there's certain players who actually want the game to end. Again, this is literally like a 6-card combo, trying to get all these cards onto, my land, which they can tap for mana.
Yeah.
And it's taken forever to get there, and it's taken a long time, essentially. So, like, it's going to be turn 10, turn 11, whatever, when it actually happens. But asking that question ahead of time to know where other people are at, what kind of game that they're expecting, if they want this or not. I mean, you can always just, again, if it's in your deck, you can always just keep the Filigree Sages in your hand as just a dead card and not play it too.
Yeah.
But, like, if the other players aren't okay with that, but it's better to ask ahead of time and know that.
Yeah. When you sit down to a table for a casual game, and rule 0, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's really all that this all comes back to is
100%.
rule 0. Making sure you just have a clear expectation of the kind of game that you're going to have. How long do you guys, like, I only have so much time to play, so I'm actually okay with infinite combos or whatever,
What turn does your deck typically win?
Right.
Like, what is your goal to win it, essentially? If your deck is humming, doing what it's supposed to be doing, at the top end, what does it get to? At the bottom end, what does it get to?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, so I think that, like, we haven't really said, like, don't do, I mean, we have said don't do infinite combos, but I think it's more or less go ahead and do what you feel.
Yeah.
But just be aware that, like, not everybody is trying to assemble the infinite combo.
Yep. I'd say do what you feel, but again, like, make sure you're having that discussion ahead of time so that you can line up with expectations. Everyone can line up the exact, or to as close as you can, because again, it's impossible to get everyone on the exact same page, especially if it's the first time you're playing with these people. But get expectations as close as you can.
Yeah, what, like, if it is an infinite combo for, like, infinite mana, for
Yeah.
instance. Hey, are you guys okay with infinite mana combos? I might dump that into an X spell or something like that to get exponential amounts of something.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm not necessarily winning on the spot.
Sure.
Because people might be okay with that.
Sure.
Versus for me personally, it's the game's done now.
Sure.
Like, just like, I'm over here looking at trying to plan out my next turn, and all of a sudden, you know, I happen to, like, miss something that somebody did over here for 1 second. Then all of a sudden it's just like, all right, shuffle up for another. Wait, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, for me, it's like I want to eliminate those kinds of games.
Sure. 100%. Like a dead game, essentially.
Yeah.
Like where you had 3 turns, you got 3 lanes of play, and then you had to reshuffle. So.
Right.
Yep. 100% fair. So again, like, I guess, again, I think the main thing is set expectations.
Set expectations.
That's just basically what it is. Just talk. It's a social format. Just talk to everyone, okay?
Yep. It'll eliminate the feel bads. It'll make the games a lot more fun. And just remember that, like, when you sit down to a table with 4 people or with 3 other people, whether you're friends with them or whether they're strangers, it's kind of like you're playing, like, Monopoly or any other tabletop game. It's going to be social. We're the social format.
Yep.
You're going to have conversations, maybe side conversations, learn about each other, make new friends.
100%.
It's not so much like I gotta sit down and I gotta win.
Well, this is,
You know?
you're playing committed. It's a format where you have 4 people, right? You're going to win 25% of the
Expect
time.
to lose.
25% of the time. You're like, literally, if
You
you
should
go up to the
lose.
table, you're probably going to lose
Yeah.
because 50% would be like, okay, like, yeah, okay, cool. I might win, I might lose. No, it's like, you should lose. Like, you should lose on average. You should lose.
Yeah.
So you have to be okay with that.
I actually keep analytics, just really, really high level analytics of, like, win losses on my decks. And if a deck that I have is, like, losing a ton, that gives me reason to, like, do I really like this deck? Should I just take it apart? And how do I make it better? Or if a deck is just like, man, every time I play this, I win.
Yes.
And maybe it's too powerful, or maybe I need to play it less, or like consider, be a little bit more upfront about, like, hey, it's not necessarily winning with infinite combos, but, like, this deck does a thing, and it's pretty powerful.
Or make adjustments, tune it down. Like, there's a lot of things you can do. My like you said that essentially, like, my Lich's Master deck has never won, like, ever, and the entire deck is built around trying to do this janky combo. Like, it's because it's a janky combo, right? Essentially, but, like, it's never won. So, like, I like to play it still, but I still ask again, even though it's a deck that has literally never won, it has never been a threat to anyone. I've almost got there. That it is one I still ask ahead of time if everyone's okay with it, because some people aren't, and that's okay.
Yeah, like, I've never won a game with Triskaidekaphile or Simic Ascendancy, or, I mean, I'm sure there's a few others that I have in some of my decks, but it's like, hey, I have this in there. It's not really what the deck's trying to do. But just, are you guys okay with it? And if 100%. Not, you know, I can grab a different deck or 100%. Whatever.
Okay, again, so all we're trying to say, this entire discussion, I guess, is just talk. Okay?
Just talk.
Just talk. Socialize. Social format. Talk to each other. Okay?
Word.
Easy enough. Well, thank you, Eric, for joining today, having this great discussion. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on all this. And, of course, as always, blame Eddie in the comments below because it's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, bye. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.